Welcome to Ladder Daily Digest. We honor creators, and that could be a podcaster, it could be an author. And today we are honoring a comedian, the Fresh King Benjamin. And Ben
We need
Brown,
to get the applause
welcome
button.
to the show.
Yes.
That's right. We don't have the Bill Real techno board.
Bow to me.
Oh, see, now we're getting into other territories. We're jumping from one cult to another, which is actually kind of part of your story.
That is. I've jumped around to a number of cults. I would call myself a cult connoisseur. I like to go around and sample them.
The last Mormonism live show, they featured a cult guy that would go to other cults, and RFM called him a cult hopper.
A cult hopper, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
cult hopper.
When
you can steal the rock from my palm, then you're truly a man.
What I know about cults is this: if you like cults, I think cults are fun. You go, you join a cult, you play a little bit, you get love bombed. That feels really good. My rule is just never accept their third offer. So as long as you never accept a cult's third offer, you're going to be fine. So you can go, you can get like love bomb. You can get told that you're, a spiritual starseed from Lebanon or something. But
the third offer is always like, give us all your money if you want to go to the highest heaven.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, what's the third offer?
It depends, but it usually involves a lot of money and probably
or your almost 15-year-old daughter.
Yeah, or they just
trap the prophet.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, Ben, give us a 5-minute life sketch, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I am a 7th generation Mormon, which I feel is a little bit magical and witchy because I'm the seventh son and I'm out. My family joined Mormonism in 1835. A guy named Ebenezer Brown joined in New York. He was a 1st generation immigrant, which I think is actually pretty common for a lot of early Mormons. And that's pretty par for the course for the cult. Cults tend to prey on vulnerable people, and immigrants are vulnerable people. So he joined in 1835. He became a polygamist pretty quickly. Like as soon as people were allowed to practice polygamy, he jumped right on that. I think he had like 4 or 5 wives. He had like 23 kids or something.
No convincing necessary.
No, he was super into it.
I'm in.
Yeah. And who wouldn't want to have a bunch of wives? I'm divorced, so I have -1 wife. And that's my favorite number of wives to have, actually. So I was really not cut out for it. I'm really more of a no-ligamist. So they came west.
Same.
Yeah,
I can relate to that. Yeah.
I just don't know why you would want a
uniligamist
of the worst part of a relationship. Like, why would you want to be married a bunch? Like dating a bunch? Yeah, great. Lots of friends? Yeah, great. Lots of spouses? I don't know. Maybe I did spouses wrong, but I like not having that. Anyway, that's maybe a little bit more into my psyche than you needed to know. So they came west. They were part of over the generations, they bounced around. Like Brigham Young would send out, mission trips to different parts. So they ended up in southern Utah for a while. They ended up in Kanab. Eventually they end up around the turn of last century. So 1900s, they end up in Wyoming. And when the LDS church stops practicing polygamy, and there's kind of the initial split between the LDS and the polygamous groups, my family goes with the LDS church. So they stop practicing polygamy. They're like, yep, we're going to follow the prophet, even though the prophet is now contradicting what all the other prophets said. We're going to go this way. And they were that for up until my dad and grandpa. So and this was in the 80s. So right around the same time that like the Lafferty things are going on, like the 80s were a weird time in Mormonism, right? Like there are lots of kind of going back to fundamentalism. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that in 1978, God changed his mind about Black people. And so the people that were like maybe a little bit more racist were like, actually, maybe he didn't change his mind. And that was my family. And so they joined my grandpa and my dad. They joined the Apostolic United Brethren, or the AUB.
Who was in charge back then?
That would have been Owen Allred. It was right after Rulin got blood atoned by the LeBarons. So regular mafia shit in Mormon polygamy. Yeah. Hardcore, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, and that goes for the early church too. Like, it's just
families can kill together forever.
I mean, it's not that big of a surprise when you look at the very first story in the Book of Mormon. Like, it blows my mind that Mormons are all like, no, we're not violent. Like, look at your scripture.
Yeah.
The very first story is killing someone for Jesus. That's the first
I thought that
story.
as a missionary sometimes. I was just like, because you're trying to get people to read the Book of Mormon,
Like,
and
let's skip over this
many
part.
people didn't. But yeah, like it is right there, like right up front in the beginning, and
It's right there. And not only that, they have cartoons about it. Like, there's a
Yeah.
living scripture.
Living scriptures.
I watched as a kid. I actually have a whole box of them. I want to do like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 of the living scriptures. That's
Oh, that would be good.
on my to-do list. But like, I remember watching that cartoon as a kid, and like Nephi's like, I don't want to, for some reason his boob is showing. Like, that was, I don't know why. But like, he's like, I don't want to kill this guy. And the angel's like, you gotta.
Yeah.
And then there's this, it pans back and there's a shadow of him raising a sword and then chopping this dude's head off. Anyway, so that was the world that I was born into. And there was a big split in my family, right? Because about half of my family was LDS, and then the other half kind of went polygamous. And that was a huge disruptor in the family. It was a big kerfuffle, as they say. And so I was sort of born into this rift. There was not only a rift in my family, it was also a rift in this worldview, right? It was a rift in Mormonism. And as I grew up, they started to prophesy and kind of groom me to be the one that would unite those two. So when I was 18, I got a patriarchal blessing from the AUB, where it was prophesied that I would be the one who would unite the LDS church and all of the polygamous sects under the true thing.
Wow.
You were the golden child.
You are standing in the presence of the prophesied chosen one, maybe the one mighty and strong. I don't know. I'm not that strong. I'm kind of skinny, but
That's a huge.
You could start using
ask.
deodorant, taking regular baths.
You could probably take some baths. Maybe that's what I'm talking about.
Too strong.
I do think that that's funny though, because ultimately I did do that, right? Like I did unite the LDS church and all of the polygamous churches under the banner of it's all made up. And that's when I sort of left in degrees. I grew up on a compound. I left that compound in 2007 to go to college, to become a lawyer, to protect them. I didn't do that. After being out for a little while, I was like, actually, this wicked world thing is pretty cool. So I joined the LDS church because you guys were my diet cult, to kind of wean myself off. And after a couple of years in the diet cult, I was like, oh, this is all bullshit. I get it. And so I left that in 2015. After leaving in 2015, I did what I think everyone who leaves Mormonism should do, which is I went on a big healing journey. So I got into therapy. I realized that I'd been really deeply traumatized. So I got into some psychosomatic trauma work and started to really unpack what had happened to me, and not just me, but generations of my family, what had happened to us in this cult, and the way that it sort of represses. And I think fundamentally what Mormonism does, the reason why Mormonism is nefarious and dangerous, is that fundamentally it represses natural human expression. And if you just allow human beings to naturally express, what they do is they express, and then they get feedback from the world, and then that modulates their expression, and then they slowly become who they are. Right. And what Mormonism does, Mormonism comes in and says, no, there's only one right way to be, and you have to be this. And if you're not this, then you need to feel shame and guilt and just turn off that part of you. So we have a whole bunch of underdeveloped, like they never actually express who they are.
Yeah.
And so when you leave, I think that's why people, when they leave, it's like the floor drops out from under them. They have no idea who they are, because they've never been allowed to just express themselves.
That's how I feel. And what's been ironic to me to discover through deconstructing is it not just that there's the wicked things that they want to repress in people, but they also end up affecting and repressing the good things that they want to come out. So like, I know, I mean, like with motherhood, they control so much of that for women. So when I hear women who say like they, we're so stressed out because they had children younger than they wanted or felt ready. Like they didn't feel ready, but they felt they had to. Mm-hmm. And then right after each other, more than they wanted and closer together, that what it did was it made motherhood this really big
Painful.
burdensome thing that was a struggle, and they were isolated, and I've had some women say that they look at their friends who didn't have that, who had their babies when they wanted to, because they wanted to.
Yes.
And there's just a different level of joy and bonding between the mother and child that they got to have, that Mormon would this is the purpose, that this is our reason for existence, is to be mothers, and yet it ruins that for us. But even, I mean, everything, like parenting, everyone's supposed to be a parent, but so many Mormon families, the parents are really immature, and don't parent well, because they're not really fully, like you said, they're not fully developed. So
they're children themselves, right?
Yeah.
I think I look at the Mormon world and I see a whole bunch of stunted, underdeveloped humans. And I love those people. I love them, but that's what's going on. And so when I left, I kind of consciously I was like, I know that I'm underdeveloped. And so I sort of intentionally went on a journey where I was like, I'm going to go, all of those things that they told me not to do, I'm going to go do those things. I'm going to go do them. And I'm going to hope that in doing and letting myself express and do whatever I want, that what's going to happen is that I'll do some things and I'll be like, ooh, actually, I really like that thing. I'm going to keep doing that. And then I'll do other things and I'm like, you know what? I don't like how that feels. I'm not going to do that thing anymore. And what I've found is that letting just the light that's inside of me, like, don't hide your candle under a bushel. What that really means is express. There's something inside of you that just wants to come out and express. And when I do that, I'm happier, and the way that I show up is 10 times better. And I'm able to sort of get into this space of living my life. Because
I want to ask a question on this, like a clarifying question, because I can see people hearing what you say and thinking, I mean, first of all, you're talking about all the bad sins, and even like the bad, worse ones that can get people addicted or hurt or whatever. And which you may mean that. And I do know people that go that route, but I'm curious if in your list of things that you were, forbidden to do before, that did you want to do them? Were there any that you didn't want to do, but you were kind of forcing yourself to, just to experience it?
Yeah. So the first thing that I did is I had to murder some people. So I murdered some people. I only did what I wanted to do, right? So for me, a lot of that was around sex stuff, right? So I was like, I want to go have a bunch of sexual experiences. I want to go be a little bit of a slut. I went and I hired a dominatrix in Austin, Texas, who's like this professional dominatrix. She did like a 4-day workshop where I went and she taught me how to have good sex, right? And
it's fascinating.
And that was mind blowing, right? Because what I learned is that, and this is just one example, right? But in Mormonism, we are so steeped in sexual shame. We are so steeped in sexual shame. And what that does is that puts this weight on our sexual expression, so that anytime we feel sexual expression, we're like, oh, that's bad. So we try to not express it. And then it just comes out in really weird ways, like soaking.
Because it's going to come out.
Because it's going to come out, right? In fact, sexual expression is not only not bad, it's actually incredibly good, right? It's healthy. It's our creative life force. It's the most human and beautiful thing that we could do. And so I went and I'm working with, her name's Kimmy Inch. She's this fabulous, fabulous woman. She's a psychosomatic therapist and a dominatrix. So she does therapy and she does sex work. And what she does, and she's created this really cool model that allows you to kind of like express and to find ways of channeling that energy that's healthy, right? And so the approach is, rather than going, this is what Mormonism does, right? Mormonism says, never express your sexual self, screw that down until you're married. And then when you're married, it will magically come out in a beautiful way.
Right.
And
it doesn't. Yeah. It's one of the things that gets ruined.
It's one of the things.
I want to just come in, and I hope I don't sound like I'm correcting or suppressing what you're saying, because that's a tendency that can happen when it's like, oh, it seems like someone's going way over here, where like a lot of people will be really uncomfortable. And so, but I just want to, I guess, come in and say, first of all, that people don't have to do that if they're not interested in that. Of course. Yeah, we know that, but I want to say it just so we can say it. And also, I mean, I think in like my journey, that wasn't a part of it for me. I feel like I'm becoming more and more like who I am every day, and I haven't done it by specifically seeking out quote unquote sins. And so, but for me, being able to express and to talk about these things has helped as well. So I don't. I guess I just want people to feel that they have the freedom to go after and do the things that you've done, but also if that's something that causes a lot of anxiety or something, that's not the only way to freedom and expressing yourself coming from a repressed culture. I just want to put that out. But
I would even build on that and say,
yeah,
you probably know the
yeah,
part of yourself that's unexpressed, right?
that's
And
great. I agree
so
with that.
just pay attention to the things, just pay attention to what is it that is attractive to you? And it's not just that for me, right? Because the list of things that were wicked for me were,
I mean, there's a lot.
Were
Right.
drinking caffeine, were
Yeah.
drinking coffee, right? And so what I would
Having
just
fun on
say,
Sunday.
having fun on Sunday, like there are so many, what Mormonism does to people is it tells people that their natural human desires are sinful and wrong. The natural man is an enemy to God. And I would just say that is horseshit. That is not true. Humans have healthy desires. And if you just feel into your body
Yeah.
and pay attention to what your body wants, your body will take you to safe places. Now, it may be a little bit uncomfortable. It may kind of require you to like do something that you're like, oh my God, like now I feel a little bit.
It's good to go out of your comfort zone.
But that's part of that process. And
another thing is to not yuck somebody else's yum. So
yeah, don't yuck.
Sometimes people are still judgmental.
Yeah. And like, to me, that's the real beauty of the opportunity that we've all been afforded in exiting Mormonism is the opportunity to discover ourselves, right? And the way that I think we discover ourselves is by just paying attention to what we want. What is fascinating to us? What's interesting? What's pulling us, right? It might be food. It might be music. It might be art. It might be sex. It might be comedy. It might be any number.
For me, purple hair is part of it.
Hair,
yeah. And
right?
I think people also I think people who stay inside of the church and they're looking at us on the outside, I think sometimes paint us all together as one big group that, once you leave, everybody drinks, everybody does drugs, everybody becomes promiscuous, everybody gets nose piercings, everybody gets tattoos. It's just everybody does all the things.
Everybody starts a podcast.
Yeah, right. It's but that's not true. When it's just you. I think I love what you said. You know what it is. I think I've seen podcasts where people say, like, I always wanted a nose ring. I thought they looked cute, but then I felt like I couldn't. I've never felt that. But I did think I did like fun colors with hair, and I felt like I couldn't do that because it wasn't very respectful. It wasn't very, modest. It was kind of too flashy, too showy, right? And I wouldn't be allowed in the temple, I thought, or even if they did allow me, it would be a distraction to other people. So it just was something I could never really do because it kind of lasts a while. So you always want to be ready, to enter the presence of God or go into the temple. So 100%. This is just like really, small thing.
That is as expressive, right? As this, right? I paint my nails. Why? Because I like it. It makes me happy, right? And I think all of those things that you listed, right? And really what's going on here is that is what most people, that's what they do in their adolescence, right? So I really believe that there's a way to be human, right? And the way to be human is that when you're a child, you kind of play in this really kind of safe world that's sort of contained by your parents. And then when you become an adolescent, you're supposed to break rules. You're supposed to push boundaries. You're supposed to like go out and do a bunch of crazy stuff because, I mean, you're actually hardwired to do that. Everything feels better when you're a teenager. Your pleasure centers are going crazy, right? So you're wired to go out and do a bunch of crazy things. And what I think is supposed to happen is you go out and you kind of have your crazy adolescence, and then that gives you experience, right? And when you do things, when you just express yourself and then you have experience, some of those experiences feel good and some of those experiences feel bad. And as you exit adolescence, you start to reflect on those experiences and then you become wise. And I think wisdom is really just knowing who you are and knowing what you like. And if you can do that, then the rest of your life, you're going to be wise and you're going to do the things that feel good and you're not going to do the things that don't feel good. And so I don't think that so I think that there is probably some truth to the fact that people leave Mormonism and go a little bit crazy. They're not going crazy. They're becoming teenagers, and teenagers are a little wild and crazy.
And I think they're seeking the expression, like you said, that it is themselves. You know, I've never wanted a tattoo. That might change later, but I haven't gotten one.
Yeah.
Because that didn't speak to me. And most people don't color their hair. Yeah.
But
yeah,
I like I'm growing out my hair, right? I want to have big old braids, right? That sounds fun to me. So there's an expression of who I am on the inside that wants to come out. And sure, is that going to be a little bit messy? Of course it is. Of course it's going to be messy. We're children becoming adults and we're figuring stuff out. And so I think what I would maybe like to offer anyone who's listening is like a sense that it's okay. Like it's not, go a little bit crazy. It's going to be fine.
There's worse things.
A little bit wild,
yeah.
Right? Like don't be so worried about, because everyone, that's not an abnormal thing. It's a normal thing. All humans have intense and crazy adolescences. That's how they become wise adults.
But so like, don't consider you're sinning, but consider that there's going to be consequences. Be aware of consequences, but not be afraid of sinning.
Yeah. And with a lot of the self-expression, it's literally hurting nobody.
It's literally hurting nobody.
Nobody's hurt if someone else gets a tattoo or dyes their hair or something.
You dye your hair, or if you, the things that can maybe hurt some people are, if you're irresponsible around things like sex, drugs, and alcohol, that could hurt yourself, that could hurt other people. But this is why I went and I found a mentor in that area, right? Is I was like, look, I want to explore in this area, but I also want to do it safely and respectfully and in a way that doesn't harm me or other people. And it turns out that humans have been experimenting with sex, drugs, and alcohol for tens of thousands of years, and they know how to do that in healthy and safe ways. And so if you're just a little bit intentional, you can find, and I think that, by the way, is far superior to what often happens in Utah, which is, I think in Utah, there's a little bit of because I'm dating in Utah right now, right? So I think in Utah, there's a little bit of a big problem of people who leave Mormonism. They want to go crazy. They want to they want to have a bunch of cool new experiences, but they are still carrying all of this shame into that. And so they're sort of like hiding and trying to be sneaky. I'm going to just try to sneak and try to get, rather than just like do what I was taught to do, which is show up and ask very clearly and respectfully for what you want. And if there's a yes, go for it. And if there's a no, that's a no.
Yeah.
Right? And so there's a way to explore those things that is very human, very honorable, very healthy. And it's not by suppressing it and pretending like you don't want to do those things. It's by being open and honest about it, and then communicating with other people who want, because I guarantee you there are a bunch of other people who want to do that too.
I found too that even things that maybe are the same about me before or how I wanted to be have gotten better as I've been able to leave, because I've been able to be doing it now for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. And so, and one of them is just, serving. Like women are supposed to serve. It's literally taught like we shouldn't really have needs, and if we're depressed, then maybe we're thinking about ourselves a little too much, and we need to think about other people. And so I would want to help, but I always just felt like I couldn't, and I think I'm just too hollow of a person myself, too shallow to be able to really help. And so it's only now that I'm more confident in myself that so this happened the other night. I heard a woman crying like outside my window, and I live in a college town, and it still took me a second, but I eventually was just like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to see what's happening. I'm going to make sure she's okay. And before, that would have been just a really terrifying thing for me to do, but it just made sense. It was just like, no, I'm definitely going to do it. So I did. I got out and I went, and at first I couldn't find her. She was like hiding in a tree, and she was with a guy. He was holding her. She was crying. So I came by, I found him, and I said, "Are you okay?" And the guy answered for her. He said, "Yeah, we're okay." And so I said, "Okay." And then I started to leave, and then I was just like, "No, but I want to hear it from her. I just want to be sure.
Mhm.
And again, like the old me, if the old me had gotten to the point of asking, I wouldn't have asked again. I would have felt, I don't know, just too much embarrassment over being like, wait, but I don't have that now. And it's just from the confidence. So I circled back and I was like, can I just hear it from her? I just want to make sure she's okay. And so she answered, she's like, yes, I'm good. And, he wasn't like holding her on the ground. They were standing. So it did look like she was being comforted. But that, just that something simple like that, especially with strangers, just would have been so frightening for me to do. And then another thing is children. Like you're expected to, as a woman, be really good with children and sweet and kind. And a lot of people have, I guess, different age ranges where people, very few people I think are good with all children at all age. Some are great with teenagers, some are great with the little ones, some can't stand them. But I feel I've been able to have better relationship like with my nieces and my nephew now. I think because the expectation, I can love them as much as I want without any feeling of this expectation of how I'm supposed to act and how I'm supposed to love them. It's just pure. It's just way more pure than I ever was able to do before, because there's just always this kind of heaviness over me. So
Yeah.
anyway, I just wanted to point that out, that like even you don't have it, does leaving the church doesn't necessarily mean changing everything about you. The things that you like the most about yourself can also become that much better. And one more thing.
Who you are.
Yeah. And I finally able to tap into that. And it's funny, like as we were talking about self-expression, I just remembered that when I was a believer and I would see people leave the church, and I'd see them like wearing a tank top, and and they would do this picture, at a bar or at a coffee shop, and just and they would have some kind of a caption of like, this is the real me, and that I couldn't have been in Mormonism. And I didn't get it. I couldn't understand, how is a tank top the real you and not a t-shirt? It's just clothing. Or a drink, how can a coffee be different than juice? Or like, how is a coffee you? If you lived in a time without coffee, is that you? And I really didn't understand how it was, but now I get it. It's not the tank top, it's not the coffee. It's just about, like what you said, pursuing things that you want
Yeah.
because you want to, and not because 15 really old men in Salt Lake City say that you can or cannot. So this shirt is not a tank top, it's modest, but I have it because I like it, not because it's modest. And the
Right.
tank tops I have because I like it, not because they're immodest and I want to be an immodest ex-Mormon. I like those because I like them and I wear them when I want to wear them. And the same with something like this. So
Totally.
that's
And it really is, I think you nailed it, right? It really is about because it's rooted down in who I am, right? So humans, we express ourselves through the clothes that we wear, through the things that we do, through the food that we eat. Like that's our way of saying, this is me, y'all. I like orange. Here I am with orange, right? Like, so it really is about getting to know yourself. And I think that's the most beautiful thing that anyone could really do, because really once you start to get to know yourself, then you're able to offer that unique self to the world. And what we desperately need, I think, in this world are people who are alive and tapped into who they are, who can go out and love the world, right? And if I don't love myself, I have nothing to give to the world, because I'm going out and I'm just I'm just sucking.
Yeah.
I'm just sucking.
And people who live authentically give other people permission to do it for themselves and to see that. And
Totally.
I honestly think people that I met on my mission, especially, who were genuinely authentic, I didn't have the words for it then, but I felt something from them. I felt different. I knew they were happy, and I knew they were happy, that happier than I was, when I'm supposed to be the happiest, because I have the true gospel and I'm there to
Yeah.
teach them so that they can be happy.
Wearing
Yeah,
all
I
the
just
frozen. Yeah.
I just realized there's a disconnect here. And if they were willing to accept what I was sharing with them, there was a part of me that knew that they would be less happy. And I just didn't quite know how to handle that. So that took me a while. But one of the things, and I just want to share this case because it's funny, because it's opposite of your experience, where one of the things for you was exploring sexually. For me, I identify as asexual, so I've just not really had those feelings or those desires. I might someday, but the majority of my life experience, I've rarely experienced it. And it was actually really, celestial marriage was a burden to me. That the idea, I just really felt like I was obligated to be used.
That you
Yeah.
didn't want to, you had
That
no,
I didn't want to do, and I had to, and that was really deeply disturbing it to me. And so when I did leave the church, one of the first things I was thinking was that like I lost my best excuse to be celibate, to not be doing things. And initially, again, because I was still, that was really fresh, and I needed time to work into who I was. That gave me anxiety because I felt like I need to have an excuse, or like, what do I tell people, if I'm dating, like, I don't want this or whatever. Because it used to be just my fallback. I'm Mormon and I don't believe in that until after
Yeah.
marriage. But yeah. And so again, it just took some time before I really, I guess, realized and learned for myself that, first of all, like, it was okay for me not to want to have sex, and for me to talk about it and to be firm about it. And I don't have to give any excuse at all, because
Yeah.
the reason to not do it is because I don't want to. And
I
that's
don't
enough.
want to.
That's it.
That's a complete,
I don't want to.
I don't want
Yeah.
to.
And I feel a lot of confidence in that, and it makes me really happy. And
Yeah.
and ironically enough, like, if anything, just that is maybe, I think, more open potentially in the future, because there's a lot of people who think it's really sad that this is a part of life I'm missing out on. And maybe, but yeah, I think just knowing that I have the right to say yes and no to things, it actually makes it seem a lot less scary to me now. And so that's actually has opened me up more potentially
Yeah.
to experiencing something in the future, again, on my terms and when I'm ready and when I want to. But whereas before it was just fear, it was really anxious.
Too,
yeah.
Like, there's an entire, that we're told in Mormonism, right, that out in the world, everyone is just super sexual, right? No, there's an entire, gender identity that is asexual, that is like, there's millions of people.
I would just correct that it's a sexual identity, not a gender one. Just to be clear.
I'm
Yes.
still trying to figure
No,
out.
it's all good, because I'm a woman. I feel like a woman. I'm just not. Yeah.
There's a whole group of people that are like, look,
Yeah.
this is who I am, and that you get to be that, right? And that I fucking love that, because that means that it's humans expressing who they are. And nobody gets to tell another human, I don't think, no one gets to tell another human how they should express themselves.
Right.
Self-expression is a fundamental human right.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of benefits to, I'm sorry, Gene, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, Ben's been able to express himself for 9 years now. He's been able to be authentic, right?
Yeah.
And so, just to get back to Ben's story a little bit, but you want to say something
I just
first?
want to say one more thing real quick, and then I promise I'll be quiet. I didn't realize this was going to speak to me so much, and then I would have to come back.
One tangent.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to say that there's benefits to society in both ways. I mean, like, from the evolutionary aspect, sexuality, it's reproduction, right? But we know there's far more to it than that. But and so I know a lot of people, like, from my side of things, will say, like, this is really unnatural. Human beings should all feel some sexual feelings or something, because at the core of it, we've got some kind of a nature to reproduce. But that's not exactly true when you're looking at communal societies.
100%.
Yeah. So people like me in these societies, and I've done this, like, literally for my own family, and it's its own little kind of a bubble. When there are people who don't have their own offspring, they're more available to help out in other ways and with other people's offspring. And that's something that I end up doing in a lot of places. I have, like, single friends who have children, and I love being around their children, and they feel awkward around me with them sometimes, because they worry about their behavior or whatnot. But I have the energy, I have the space, I have to interact with them, like, where they're at. And I don't know, I have a really good time with children, and they're not a burden to me because I don't have any on my own. And so, like I said, in my own family, when they're
stop whenever
reaching
you
their
feel like
limits,
it. You don't have to see them next morning.
But I'm happy to, to take the nibblings to the library so that mom gets a break, because she needs a break to be a good mom. She needs that time to herself. And so I feel like it's not just the kids that I serve when I'm with them, but it's the adults I serve when I'm with their kids.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, friends of mine, I'm going to help one. She's got a daughter that's type 1 diabetic. So, yeah, she's got parents out of town. So just as another backup, I help a lot with other people's children. because I don't have my own. So
That's
yeah,
right.
so there's
There's
just
a lot of different
there's
people
a
in the
place for the
village.
experimentation, there's a place for the reproduction, there's a place for those who
Yeah.
don't.
And what I think, and then we can get back, Gene, to your thing, because I know that we sort of went down this rabbit hole, but I think that the most beautiful thing about humans is that when you just allow everyone to naturally express who they are and what they want, we seamlessly fall into these beautiful systems of supporting and helping each other, where your unique self-expression and my unique self-expression and Gene's unique self-expression, all of those things, we're just being ourselves. We're just being who we are. And it just naturally unfolds that that's good for everyone. And I think that's so beautiful about humans. We don't actually need to be controlled. We don't actually need 15 dudes from the 1930s telling us what to do.
Self-regulation.
Or all being on the same path.
We're all being on the same path. We're
Yeah.
all doing exactly the same thing.
We could be mentally healthier at the same time.
Yeah. Thanks for coming to our TED Talk about.
I feel like we could wrap it up. Like that could be a show
start a new
on
podcast. We
its
could
own.
call it The Celibate and the Slut.
Yeah. Honestly, it probably would be, I think, really interesting for people and helpful, because a lot of people don't see both sides of things, or they tend to see the religious side as the Puritans, and so when you leave, if you do anything else beyond that, that's all bad, and no one else is ever on the outside healthy who's not having sex all the time, and that's not true. Anyway, yeah,
there are so many
that would be fun.
so many beautiful ways to be human.
Yeah, and this was something I had to learn as well too, was that to learn to become really sex positive as someone not interested in it myself. And I do think that I am, and that's how I want to be. I understand, even though it's not something I experience, I have the ability to understand that it's very important for other people, and not to denigrate that, because that's something that can come from the side of people like me, to just not get it and just be like, why are you like this? Why do you do these things? It just seems like it just
there's a part of my comedy brain that really wants to get into your, because I want to sort of see the world the way you see it, because I imagine that all of us hoes out here look really silly to you.
I mean, sometimes I feel, especially when it comes to relationships, especially because it can be so hard to find, first of all, to learn to be healthy ourselves when we grow up in such toxic systems, that toxic relationships just really make me sad. And it really makes me sad that for a lot of people, being in a relationship is the default, and that they would rather get into a toxic relationship than to learn to be happy alone. And so I do feel like I have friends that I just, if there anything I could do from, I wish they could be happy with themselves as I am with myself. And if anything, I think that would actually free them to find a good person who is good for them, rather than kind of have to go through this wheel.
That cycle.
Yeah. But on the other hand, I do think there's something really special and close about sexual intimacy that I'm missing out on, and maybe never have. And and then that's fine for me. I don't care all that much. I do think that's cool for other people. And if it happens for me, I think that's great too. But I also would hate to, I guess, denigrate that experience for other people, or pretend that it's not meaningful, or that it's not important. Kind of like the church does with homosexuals, and they, if you can't marry and have a heterosexual, then to be celibate the rest of your life. I'm someone who's choosing to be celibate, but that makes me incredibly sad for somebody else to be told that. And I'm not okay with that at all. Because it's not healthy for them. It's healthy for me. If they're not choosing it and they're being forced to do that, then I feel very sad for what they're missing out on, even though it's something I'm choosing to miss out on, because I think it's hurting them far more than it's hurting me. And I want people to have consensual, sexually intimate relationships that fulfill them. And that's something, that you can do. Like you can be an advocate for this kind of thing while still being someone like me that's not interested in it personally. You don't have to shame other people for it.
You can support other people
you can be an ally
that they want, that you're not interested in doing.
Right.
Wild. Right.
Love is love.
I love that. Cool. Well,
okay.
What a fun little tangent.
Yeah. Should we wrap it up? I think, because I do. Okay. I think this was good as a standalone episode. And I am trying to get some other things done before the end of the day today. Can we do a close and then can we come back and do the mockery? Because that one I also I really want to hear them.
I would love to come back on and do the mockery one. I think that could be fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do a part 2.
When does this go? When does this go live? Today?
Gene's our
Probably,
scheduler.
and I think we have it calendared for January 5th, 2025.
Okay, perfect.
Is that okay? Is that fit?
Yeah,
Will you be available to jump on the chat?
Let me just look in my Searstone real quick, and I'll see what I've got going on.
So I'm thinking like Sunday.
We
or
usually
Monday.
release Sundays.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Can I just plug? I've got a show coming up on April 7th. So it's with Comedy Church, and it's going to be here in Harriman at the Redemption Bar and Grill. In fact, let me just pull that up real quick. So I don't know if you guys have show notes or anything. April 7th, it's going to be.
Yeah, and just while you're looking for that real quick, I'll just say there's more you can learn about the Fresh King Benjamin from his Mormonism Live appearance.
Yep.
And he was on Year of Polygamy with Lindsay Hansen Park. And what was the other appearance?
And I was on Cults to Consciousness with
Cults to Consciousness. That's
Shalice,
a really good one.
yeah.
Yeah, that was
fun. Who just had her baby
Watch
past
that one
week.
to the end, because at the very end I do one of the most epic Linda listens in Cults to Consciousness history.
Okay.
And it's gotten pretty rad reviews. But yeah,
Come to think of it, I think I remember listening to that.
Yeah,
that's right.
I posted it on my TikTok a couple times where I'm just like, Linda, you're in a cult. And then I go on that for a little bit. But yeah, so if anyone's local, Sunday, April 7th, 7:30 p.m., we're going to be talking about the law of chastity at Comedy Church. So it's going to be hysterical. I have some soaking jokes. I have some blowjob jokes. I have some jokes about my
And who doesn't?
history, like who doesn't? And if I just popped the chat or into the chat, there's that link. So you can post that. And if people use the code Benjamin when they check out, they can save a whole $2 on tickets. So it would only be an $8 ticket, y'all. So everyone should definitely come out to that.
That can maybe get you some fries.
Affordable show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could get like half a beer or something.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on. And I love the topic that we covered.
That wasn't what we were planning to talk about.
So what else are we teasing?
I would love to come back on and talk about mockery and the role of mockery in dismantling Mormonism, because that's sort of where I live. Right. So I have a mission in my life where I want to, when I die, I want the Mormon power structure to die with me. It has harmed way too many people for too long. I'm sick of it. It's dumb. It's harmful. It needs to go. And I think one of the most powerful tools that we have in dealing with Mormonism is mockery. And one of the ways we know that is because they all tell us not to. They're like, don't do it. Don't make fun of us. Don't say mean things about us. Be respectful.
Leave us alone. Leave us, but leave us alone.
I'm not going to.
So that's the title of the show, I think, is Don't Knock Mockery.
Don't knock mockery. Oh, that's great. It even rhymes.
Look for that in a couple weeks.
Fresh King Benjamin part 2.
Fresh King Benjamin.
So yes, everybody, this is a slightly different show from the 70-year-old that wrote a book that I've had on my podcast sometimes, or other shows that we've done. And so thank you, Ben Brown, for coming on. Everyone, like and subscribe and share, and look for the future shows. And if you're in the Salt Lake area, consider trying out your authentic self. Try an experiment with going to a comedy club. I've heard that people even laugh sometimes at Ben.
Yeah, sometimes. I've made 3 people laugh before. So
and a couple others even laughed with.
Some laughed with, some laughed at. I really accept any kind of laughter.
That's right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thanks, everybody. I think it'll be, it's spring today. So it's going to be, spring has sprung. And so everybody have a good spring.
Happy Easter, everybody.
That's right.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.